Hi, welcome to Future-Proofing Your Support Visuals. Thanks for being here today. A little bit about me, first of all. I am the support visuals owner at You Need a Budget. I make sure all of our customer-facing videos and GIFs are up to date, coordinating a team of 6 support specialists who, in addition to working with customers, also have the title visualizer, meaning they make our visuals. I've been a support specialist at YNAB for almost 6 years, and I took on the role of visuals owner early in 2019, last year. I've also led various cross-functional teams, managed a team of specialists for a while, and worked a bit in research and design. I also have a couple of kids, one of whom is a super crunchy nature kid, and the other one is somehow driving, even though he was just born. And here's a picture of me at the beach with my boyfriend just for fun. Here's the company I write for. You Need a Budget, or YNAB for busy people. We teach 4 rules to help people get out of debt and save more money. This is my team, the visuals team, 6 specialists who make our videos and GIFs or GIFs. While YNAB has other videos, YouTube, marketing videos, workshops, I work specifically on our help docs, which teach users how to use our budgeting app. We're a B2C company, so these go straight to the public. And if you're wondering why visuals, if you're wondering why visuals, I've heard it said that 90% of people are visual or auditory learners. And maybe that's true, but rather than look at that data, let's consider this. You are here watching and listening to me rather than reading this content in an article. So almost every visual my team makes is either of our web app or our mobile app, and it's designed to help the viewer understand an action to take. That means all of our visuals are a screenshot or a screencast of our own app. This talk is based on that, and I'm curious to hear if your visuals are something else and how this might apply to your work. And just so you're aware of what's up for us, here's a 1-minute video to give you an example of what we create. If you transfer money between accounts at the bank, you'll want to enter or import that transfer transaction in YNAB too. To add a new transaction, click the Add Transaction button. Or, if your transaction has imported, you'll see it already in the register. Either way, click on the Payee section to edit it. Be sure to select the transfer payee in the list, and it won't need a category. Notice that the account balances have changed, but nothing in the budget has changed because that money was already in the budget. A transfer transaction will appear in the Other account. Transferring between a budget and tracking account will also use the transfer payee, but it will need a category. In this case, you'll see the category activity changes, like for a bill. That transaction does affect the budget because money is entering, or in this case, leaving the budget. And remember, you can click on the Jump button to view the other side of any transfer. To make these videos, we use primarily ScreenFlow. That's for videos and for GIFs or GIFs. We make them there and export them as a GIF. We use Cloud App for screenshots, and the whole support team uses Cloud App for ad hoc videos and GIFs that we send directly to one customer at a time. For mobile videos and GIFs, the visualizers use Browser Stack to grab actions in the mobile app. Actually, we use App Live within Browser Stack for that. And a little bit more context, what's going on for us right now are some big changes. So to give you an example, to show you what's going on, here's our web app. I also have a mobile app. Here's the web app. And this is what it looked like as of July of this year. From July onward, our app will change to look like this. And that may not look like much, but here's an example. In addition to the color changes, which required an overhaul of every single screenshot, GIF, and video that we have, this fall's and winter's feature releases include changes to this prominent heading, this term, and terms here, and a few here, as well as an upgrade to this whole functionality, and a newly collapsible sidebar here, a brand new feature here, which you can't yet see, and new category names here, 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 and here. And that's the beauty of software as a subscription. While there's ongoing development, new features are released on a rolling basis, not saved up for a dot version release schedule. This complicates doc writing because when the customer buys a new version, they're upgrading intentionally and expecting to learn something new. When releases are pushed to them continually, they may not be ready. Even though we're excited about the change, they may find it a bother. We can make this easier for them with accurate support videos. And that's why I developed this support visuals process that's modular, measured, elastic, and detailed. And I can't take credit for these adorable doodles that our marketing team created, but I can use them, probably overuse them. So modular. Modular visuals include files for everything. So for our videos, we have 6 files for every video. A thumbnail that I use simply to plop on the front of every video. And there's a cat right here over my shoulder. Oops, over this shoulder. So they've come to join us. Captions are saved separately, so we can add them back in or remove them and change them if needed. If you use ScreenFlow, whichever video creation app you use, you want to save an editable file from that app so that we can open it back up and we can plug in different audio in just one place, for example. We save the video itself, which is what we upload to Vimeo. We use Vimeo. And save the audio. So in the case of a total visual change, but no functionality changes, we can use the same audio and re-record just the video, which really cuts the time of creating a video in half. And my favorite, the script. So when you save a script, when you use a script, it forces you to think ahead, forces you to think through the actions you'll take. And a script can be started before you have early access to the feature releases. You do need to be careful with that because if you start scripting based on what the development teams tell you is going to happen, and then they change, which of course things change as they go through development up to the beta, then you'll need to change your script. Also, what's great about scripts is they're reusable. So I can have Madeline make a video in April, and then I can have Rachel remake that same video in November using that same script. And Rachel can just edit the script as needed for the feature release changes. Last but not least, those scripts are searchable. We keep them in Google Docs. So what I can do is search for terminology that the development team is changing. For example, if the word budget in the app is going to become a sign, then I can search the word budget and I immediately know which scripts and thus which videos need to change. GIFs are similar, but a little less tricky because there's no audio and there's no script. Really, a GIF is simply a series of actions. I usually keep 2 GIF files, actually. One that's smaller that we can embed. It's the pixel width is narrower and the resolution is lower. So we can embed those in emails. And then a larger full-size GIF file that we can put in documentation. And then again, we keep the editable ScreenFlow file so that we can go in and change just parts of that asset, not have to remake the whole thing from scratch. Here's an example of one of our GIFs. In addition to videos and GIFs, we also make screenshots. And screenshots are another great way to maximize your time before a release. You could take screenshots that development gives you as examples, use those as placeholders in your documentation for screenshots you'll take once they're finalized. You can also use those to re-script things because you'll be able to see what's different. As long as you earmark any changes you make for review later when you get a final version of the app. Last but not least, if you connect with other teams like marketing, or we have an education team that also makes visual resources, you can share assets and do less work, not duplicate the work that each team is doing. So I try to be in meetings with those teams as much as they'll allow me. So in sum, when your videos are modular, they have many parts, you script them, you work with other teams, and didn't mention this, but if you save files in multiple places, you're building redundancy, and you won't lose, if you lose all of your data from one place, say Google Drive, for example, then you'll have it somewhere else backed up. And that represents potentially hundreds of hours of your team's work. So it's worthwhile to build redundancy in where you save those files. Measured processes mean you know exactly how many screenshots of your app one staff member can update in an hour, or how many hours it takes to make a video. And if you know how many videos are affected by next month's feature release, for example, then you know exactly how many staff hours you need to be ready for that release. These are the numbers that I've come up with. I got here by interviewing other teams at other companies and by interrogating my own team. How long did it take you to make those? When you make this set of GIFs next week, tell me how many hours it took you to make those. And then I recorded all of that and averaged it out. And I have that in a spreadsheet. And this is essentially called evidence-based scheduling, which is an excellent article that you'll find a link to in my resources by Joel Spolsky. His article refers to development time, but it applies really well to documentation. So that brings us to staffing. So for example, if right now we have 37 support videos that each take about 6 hours to recreate, some less, some more. They'll take less if we don't have to redo the audio, but only need to redo the video. But they'll take more if we need to script them all the way from scratch because things have changed so much. So I'm thinking of 6 as an average. Well, that means that it'll take us 222 staff hours to complete those videos. And if I have 6 visualizers, then let's round up and say it'll take 240 hours divided by 6. That's 40 hours per specialist. And so I know I need to give them 5 full days of time away from customers each of them, in order for all of our support videos to be remade. And that's in addition to GIFs and screenshots. Those, as you can see, take significantly less time. Here, I converted the numbers from the GIFs can be made at a rate of 4 per hour to 0.25 hours per GIF, for example. Just helps me with the math. So another way that you can measure your visual documentation in a way that helps you staff it correctly is, does this even need to be remade? Like, can I just keep the old video? And one way that I've investigated that is I have an Airtable database, and I created a view just for the members of the development teams, of the product teams, who are assigned to talk to me, poor things. And I asked them to watch some of the videos and tell me if they think the video is going to be broken by the update, or if maybe the functionality is okay, but maybe there are a few things that would be off. And then I ranked that. You can see over here, functionality is okay, functionality is broken, it mentions TBB. I overlaid that data with ranking. So I get ranking of the videos, how many people watched each video, average over the last year, and I ranked them in order. So we have a number one video, and that one was viewed 1,600 times a month or something like that. And so that's our top video, and then going down from there. So if our top video is going to have the functionality broken, we are remaking that. If our, 29th most popular video is going to be probably the functionality in that video is okay, we might not remake that one as urgently. That allows me to, if I ask for 5 days from senior management for each of my visualizers, but I only get 3, that allows me to I'm already prepared to have them remake the most important videos. The other thing I do in this database is I keep sections for each of my team members, and that's where I assign them their videos they need to remake. And often I let them, they choose them, but I put them in there with their name, so I know who's doing what. That Airtable database, I created a template of it, and it's available in my resources too for you to copy and use. And regardless of feature releases, should this even be a video? It can be really tempting once you have this team of people prepared to make videos to just make all the videos. Let's make all the videos. But sometimes it takes a lot to remake those videos. It's a big commitment. Creating a video is committing to remaking that video every time the UI changes and breaks the video. So we have this rubric we use, and we discuss this at our team meetings. If a team member requests, hey, can we have a video on this? I make this video for customers sometimes, and I want this to be a video. We'll consider the demand and the complexity, as you can see in this rubric. So when your team and your processes are measured, you know how long it takes to make each resource. You know how many you have, and you can be discerning whether those videos are affected and whether they're necessary. Same thing goes for GIFs and screenshots. We think of them kind of in a hierarchy. We make a video at kind of that's the top end of our commitment. We've committed to do this. It's going to take us hours, and we're going to remake it. GIFs are a lot easier to remake, and screenshots, we actually have a process for anyone on the support team to remake, not just the visuals team. Elastic. So you don't need 10 visual experts sitting around twiddling their thumbs waiting for an update, just so you'll be able to deploy them quickly for a UI change, and then they can sit around some more. But you also don't want 1 or 2 documentarians working around the clock the week before the release. The solution is elastic staffing of your documentation team. This means your visuals team spends some or most of their time doing something else when there isn't a feature release imminent. So to think about this another way, where I live, we've just gone through a natural disaster. Hurricane Sally. Power lines were down. Internet has been down. Trees and tree limbs have fallen all over. Huge trees. It's terrifying. Boats are in roads. Barges are in people's yards. And while it would take the workers, the power line workers, the electricians in our area, the ones we have here, it would take them probably months, maybe years to get all of that, all the trees out, all the power lines back up. We've had teams from out of town rush in to help get roads cleared and power restored. Now they're people from, I don't know where, but I know that they're from places that were not affected. So back in their hometowns, they don't need to really necessarily be working on the power lines right now. They maybe have non-essential, non-urgent work that they're putting off so they can come help us. And we do have power restored and internet now, thanks to them. I'm not trying to compare feature releases to natural disasters, but when you work in documentation, it can feel that way. And a similar solution is needed having essential workers who are skilled in what you need done rush in to complete a lot of work in a short period of time while they set aside the other non-urgent work that they can get back to later. It's a very similar staffing situation. Another element of being elastic is knowing what work your team is doing when they're not making visuals for UI releases. So this is a completely fictional chart that represents kind of our conversation volume. Around the turn of the month, because we're a budgeting app, we have a higher conversation volume. More customers write in to ask us what's going on with their budgets when it's the turn of the month and they're like budgeting their income. They're looking at what happens when the month turns over. And so those are the spikes you see in this chart. So I know my team members are going to be consumed with customer volume during those times. So I schedule videos days around the days that they're not as intensely working with customers. Now, you might have video creators who aren't working with customers. They might have different tasks. So they might be documentarians. You can help them restructure their time so that non-urgent tasks can be set aside for a few days or a few weeks while they work on UI changes. It's just crucial to communicate with them the timeline as you hear about it. So if they spend most of their time updating docs, then you could plan those updates around more routine tasks. And they can put other work on hold while they sprint on the visuals. Just try to do this as intentionally as possible so they don't feel hurry up and wait. I say that from experience. Here's an example of one of my team members. Also completely fictional chart, but it kind of mimics reality. So the white bars are video creation. Madeline, for example, folds creation of screenshots and GIFs into her other work, the orange bars. And then her customer time is the blue bars here. And you can see that some months she does a lot less video work and other months a lot more. This is an example of her being like an electric line worker rushing in when there's a hurricane. This is an example of a staffing plan. It was a great plan and I had to completely burn it, which is fine. But I just threw up this example as a way that you could work through distributing your team to remake videos, since it is kind of a whole day effort to make a video. The release schedule. So planning around feature releases is a real juggling act. I don't have it figured out, but I have some tips that I think I'm mostly talking to myself and helping myself to work through this. Find a contact. Find somebody who consistently gives you accurate early information about what the product teams are doing and be proactive. It's going to feel pushy. Be nice, be kind, be sweet, but be pushy because you need that information. And product teams may not realize that your team has such staffing issues with having to create videos that take 6 or 8 hours, because mostly support can just, the support team can find out a week or two before the change happens, and then they're prepared to talk to customers about it. A visuals team has special needs. If you can, get the ramping plan. So are they planning to release the beta on Monday and then go public on Friday? Or are they going to give you 2 weeks or 4 weeks? If you have any influence, push to have at least 4 weeks between you getting early access and public release. Also be on the list for the early beta. Just be sure you get the updates pushed to you so you can, even if you don't make visuals yet, you can look at them and start to plan and start to script. And similarly, see if you can get prototypes or even just screenshots of what's coming Just use them with discretion because you don't want to remake a bunch of visuals based on prototypes and then it changes. Plan, plan, plan. To be elastic, be flexible. Think about your staffing and just be sure, if you can, to get into meetings with other teams, with the product team, with the marketing team, anybody who knows what's coming in the future. I really like this graphic. I like the little visual joke there. That's how I feel about spreadsheets too. I feel her. I get her. She's me. So to be detailed, you need a budget. No, sorry. You need a style guide. Work from your team's existing style guide, even if it's just some colors and some fonts. Whatever you can get, work with that. And then there are 3 main areas that you can write into your team's style guide: visuals, language, and distribution. Visuals, colors and fonts. I, for example, chose 2 of the 4 fonts that our marketing team uses and 5 of the many different colors that our marketing team uses. And I did this to create a mood of simplicity, straightforwardness, seriousness. I didn't want it to feel lighthearted and fun. I wanted it to feel trustable and down to business. I wanted customers to get a feeling that they would get what they need from our videos and our visuals. Similarly, annotations and transitions, choose 1 or 2, maybe 3 different types. So for example, use a fade and a dissolve, but not a fade and a dissolve and a slide and another slide. Keep it consistent. Annotations, we use boxes around things we want the customer to pay attention to, and arrows to point to them. Very occasionally, a straight line. We don't do circles or triangles or stars or whatever. An intro and an outro. If you have longer, our videos are almost always under 2 minutes, so we don't have an intro and an outro. We just have a fade in and a fade out. But if your video is a little longer, then maybe have an animated intro that comes up. And it can be helpful to be really clear about how much of the app is covered in your visuals. I have a rule that every visual covers at least 1/3 of the app, if possible, so that viewers can see clearly the context. Where is that zoomed in picture within the context of the whole app? Language is all about your audience. Your tone that you're going to strike is all about your audience. We have 9 different elements to our tone. We are friendly. We're serious. For example, we had a discussion about whether we should maybe put little jokes into our videos, like a set of categories that Luke Skywalker would use. And I love that idea. But ultimately, our team decided to work it into our tone that we are serious and we don't make jokes, because we know that our audience is maybe a little frustrated and they're solution focused. They've come to our documentation. They're not hanging out on YouTube watching videos just to have fun. They're here to solve a problem in their budget. Also, be accessible and be inclusive and explicitly describe what that means in your style guide for your team. And you can link to articles that explain that in more detail. I have some in the resources that you'll get after this talk that you can check out. Distribution. Timing, how long will your videos be? What will the location be? How will they interact with your documentation? What kind of thumbnails will you have? Here's a template that also you can get access to from our resources. And last, remember that if you're leading a team of documentarians, they are your audience. When you write a style guide, when you create tutorial videos for them, when you talk with them, they are the people that you are writing for so that they can be consistent in their work. So to be detailed, have a style guide, know who your audience is, think of your team as your audience, and record in detail how you want your videos and visuals to look and sound. And here's a quick summary. And here's my inspiration. Sarah Leigh Hamilton's video from a few years ago at Write the Docs Portland is amazing. And this book, Managing Writers, also really helpful. I took a lot from this book. And here's the one-page file that you can download that has links to everything I've mentioned and more, and a little summary of the talk. And you can find me on Write the Docs Slack at Jen Weaver, and I would love to hear from you. I would love to hear from other visual documentarians.
The first one I want to start with is something I've also wondered, which is, have you ever considered or have you ever used like a simplified user interface when you're doing these screenshots or video tutorials? Like, could you share your thoughts on that? The way I see it is like there's pros and cons as far as like it might not properly represent the actual product, but at the same time it might drive the point you're trying to get if the rest of it isn't relevant. I don't know. What do you think?
Yeah, I'd sort of considered it, but it wasn't really an option, so I hadn't really dived into it. But I like the idea. I have some hesitations, and one of them is whether the viewer will really get the associations. I think we'd have to remove a lot from the app to simplify it. Although if we could remove the dates, that would be amazing, because as of now, almost all of our videos have the month and the year right at the top. And so that means that like after a year, somebody views the video and it looks old. But if we could swing it and the viewer could still understand the learning objectives, that would be amazing. But it would seem challenging to predict what is going to change in the app and then simplify those future changes out. So like, for example, at the beginning of this year, I didn't know we were going to change all of the colors of the app. And so if we were using a simplified UI, it wouldn't have helped. We'd have had to replace everything anyway. Barring those hurdles, I think it would be
that makes sense. I think a lot of it's about finding a balance, and that's what most of these questions are, is like, so when we're talking about, for example, like recreating videos or updating videos, you mentioned the date might not be outdated content, but the date's outdated. How do you strike a balance between like remaking videos after every single change? I'm guessing that's not sustainable, versus maybe accumulating changes and then remaking the video. How do you balance that?
It's a good question. Yeah, I think for me, the one most important thing is functionality. If somebody's going to watch that video and they're going to then not be able to complete the learning objective, if the button changes so much that it does a completely different thing, then that video has to change for that iteration of the feature releases. But if it's like the color change is a good example. Somebody can view the video and it's going to feel old, but they'll still be able to complete what they need to complete by watching it, then I might wait. And it also depends on staffing. So if we're going to have one change, this month, and then one change in December, that's kind of close. And so maybe I'll just wait on that. And then it also depends on, I'll meet with people who understand the feature releases that are coming better than I do, rely on their opinions, and then kind of staff accordingly.
Absolutely makes sense. And then kind of you keep perfectly interluding into my next question. So thinking of staffing and thinking about the, documentation you have and everything that, you have to maintain, especially if you have a bigger, knowledge center. Do you have any tools or tips to kind of discover outdated videos or media content, and so that you can keep those up to date?
Yeah. Airtable is my tool for that. I mean, I think the question I saw come through in the chat was more like if there's some kind of bot that can look through all the documentation. But for videos, I have a very well annotated Airtable database with every single video, which is about 40 to 50 videos. And so that's manageable, but we probably have hundreds of screenshots, and I don't know of a bot that would look through that. And I don't have those in a spreadsheet. We organize those. We keep the screenshots where they exist. So we have them in help docs, or we have them in snippets that our reps can send out quickly. We organize them there and we go through them there. So we have teams that are not the videos team that go through and can handle screenshots. Those take a lot less time. So I don't have them in a database. But yeah, I mean, no, I don't. Cool. It would be cool. I'd love to hear about it.
Yeah, that would be great. And then really quickly before we end this session, for screenshots, as you mentioned, or videos with the visual guidelines, what's the difference between maybe that, like those, and other UI visual guidelines that you have in place?
So I don't know if I can get clarification from you on it, but like, does that mean, so like I have a set of style guidelines for screenshots, and then I have a set for videos, and how do they compare to each other? Do you think that's
I'm totally making this up, but maybe? I could imagine that it is related to, like, do you have like a specific separate style guide for, screenshots, videos, etc.? And like, is it separate from like the UI style guide, or is it together? How does that work?
Yeah, in fact, the PDF file that is, I don't know how people get that, but that I submitted to Write the Docs, that has a couple of example style guides in it. But yes, I have a very different style guide for screenshots than for videos, and I elaborated on those from our UI and our marketing style guide. So for example, I use the same colors, but I said, like, instead of the range of say 10 or 15 colors that marketing uses, we use these 5 in our screenshots and GIFs and videos. But then also, just the way it works with us, there's a wider group of people who make our screenshots. So we actually have a training in our training software for everyone, every rep, to be able to make screenshots. And that's distinct from the videos training. And they each have there's some overlap. Like when I wrote the training for how to do screenshots, I made it clear that, like, have a large portion of the app visible. And we kind of follow that with videos too, but with videos it's dynamic. So then we zoom in. You can't zoom in a screenshot. So that's kind of the difference between those two. But we do, anything that the UI style guide or the marketing style guide says, use this font, or don't use this word, or capitalize this, follow those to the letter.
No, that sounds really good. Those past 10 minutes like flew by, but thank you so much for being here with us. Do you have a way, we still had a lot of questions that unfortunately went unanswered. Do you have a way that people can, contact you?
Probably the best way is just email me at Jen.
Perfect. All right. Thank you so much, Jen, for being with us and teaching us all about media and visuals. Appreciate it.